Thanks for coming back to the website, and now I'm back to marriage issues. I began this series of blogs and videos by talking about how to do communication better in marriage. Then I transitioned into boundaries in marriage by talking about having a spouse who doesn't want to try to work on the relationship. So far, we've talked about boundaries as a method of understanding what we own in the relationship. For example, I knew someone, I'll call the person Jane, who had regularly treated me in a belittling way. After most of the times we were together, I would leave feeling like Jane didn't value me at all and led others to devalue me too. For a long time I struggled with this. I would often wonder what my problem was. Why didn't Jane treat me with respect and kindness? After all, that's how I tried to treat her. Why didn't I seem to measure up in Jane's eyes? I thought how Jane treated me was my problem, that I was being touchy. That prevented me from talking to just about everyone else in my life about it, but I prayed about it a lot too, and what the Lord showed me was that Jane was a part of the problem as well. If I could have talked to them, Cloud and Townsend might have reminded me that boundaries aren't about the other person, they're about self-control. To quote them, boundaries help us to know just where someone's control begins and ends. In my example, I needed to accept that I am not in control of the way Jane acts towards me, but I am in control of how I respond. I could use my words as a boundary to establish what I will or will not tolerate, but instead I had let my lack of words become a way that I let go of my boundaries, and my loss of boundaries came at a price. The price was that I began to resent Jane. I spent way too much mental energy dwelling on how she had treated me, about what a terrible person she was. I also didn't want to be around her. In social settings, I would try to find ways to avoid her or to avoid the entire situation. That harmed relationships I had with others. What she did to me was unkind, but what I did to myself was probably more damaging. I had not taken the counsel of the Bible in Matthew 18:15. There, Jesus tells us if someone sins against us, we should talk to them about it individually. He goes on to say that if we do this and they listen, we've won our brother. Because I didn't put up a boundary by saying to Jane, I don't like it when you fill in the blank, I allowed myself to experience a number of negative things. I gave myself the opportunity to be stressed when we were together. I put myself in a position of not enjoying some social situations. I also distanced myself from her, allowing our relationship to be damaged, and she didn't know why. It really wasn't fair to me or her, and it all happened because I didn't maintain my boundaries in that relationship. So how do we maintain boundaries in relationships? Cloud and Townsend suggest several tools: appropriate words, telling the truth, establishing consequences, keeping emotional or physical distance from the other, involving other people, and setting time parameters. I've already talked about using appropriate words. I also wasn't telling the truth when I didn't inform Jane that her actions hurt me. An example of establishing consequences would be to cancel a credit card when a spouse continues to overspend. Establishing emotional distance can be necessary if trust has been broken, and physical distance may be necessary if abuse is involved. Involving the other person can be helpful if one person's boundaries have been compromised repeatedly to give the offended person some backbone. Finally, an example of setting time parameters would be to decide that a contentious conversation will only go on for 1 hour. There's a lot more to talk about regarding boundaries in relationships. We'll pick up on this again next time.